I'm Mel Stewart, and this is GMM Takeover of the Swim Sound Podcast. Joining me today, we have three-time Olympic champion Kaylee McKeown. Just off World Championships, making history, the first woman to sweep the 50, 100, and 200 backstroke, all at the same World Championships. Wow, thanks for being here.
No, thanks for having me on. It's not often that I, jump on podcasts, and, I love swim, so thank you again.
Okay, for everybody out there listening, if you've been hiding under a rock and you didn't see what happened, we're gonna just do a quick review. 50 back, gold, 27.08, third fastest performer all time. 100 back, gold, 57.53, championship record, and 200 back, gold, 203.85, eighth fastest performance all time. I'm tired. And the relays. You picked up 2 silvers on the relays. I can't imagine World Championships. I went to World Championships. By last time I went to World Championships was in Perth, Australia in 1991, and it was exhausting then, but we didn't do semis and it wasn't as long. How do you manage the length of time and performing at that level?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to lie, it's a real challenge, but you have to remember we're all in the same boat, and it's, just a matter of getting yourself through each stage, that being, the heats into the semis and then the final, hoping that you have that little bit extra of energy after you have a morning off, and then you come in that night, hopefully red hot and firing to go. But nonetheless, it's never easier. It doesn't matter how much fitter or stronger you are. It's just a bit of a mental game, to be honest with you.
I want to talk about that 200 backstroke world record back in March, New South Wales Open Championships, the 203.14. What was going on there? How much rest? Where did that come from?
I asked myself the same question because, it was just completely left field. Literally the week before, we had done a 70K week, which is probably one of the harder things that I've ever done in my life. Bolly just kind of gave it to our group as a bit of a challenge, something different that we could kind of reflect on later in the season, be like, hey, I did that. And that was pretty cool to do. So, yeah, going into New South Wales, I had no idea I would be swimming as well as I did. We suited up the week before on that Saturday morning, and I had a really good short course session. And I was like, I'm actually in some pretty good form. So I knew, relatively I was sitting in a good spot. But yeah, never did I think that world record would have my name in it.
Let me just bring attention to what you said. 70,000 meters the week before? Yeah. Okay, then I have to ask the question: what does a Kaylee McKeown taper look like? Is it like, do you take a hot shower and a day off and that's it?
I will say my taper is completely different to what it was last year. I probably had a bit more intensity this year leading into World Championships to try to keep that back end of my racing. And I'm reflecting now. I've still got to sit down with Bolly when we get back to next season and just kind of say what worked, what didn't work, and maybe figure out, do I keep my volume up a little bit more as well? Because I tend to feel a lot better when I can feel the water, feel my body in it, which sounds weird. And it's not something that I want. I would love to have a taper and, be doing 2-3K.
That's surprising. So you were surprised. You were like, this is what did you think you would go? What would have made you happy at New South Wales Open Championships?
Before that race, all my coach wanted me to do, he's like, look, you've been playing this race safe for so many years. You go out really easy. You come back as hard as you can. He's like, I want you to put firm pressure on in that first 100 and go out in 00. I'd never done that before. So I was pretty nervous, to be honest with you, because I was like, if I don't do this, he's going to be like, oh, you didn't do what I asked. So I just wanted to get myself through that first 100 really comfortably. And, I felt good coming off that third onto the third 50. And I was like, why should I stop? And it was funny because when we were at World Championships, Regan actually said to me, she was like, that one record just feel amazing. And I was like, I've never felt like that in my life. And she was like, good, because mine felt the exact same. And I was like, I wish you could just feel that way all the time.
What's interesting is that what I'm hearing from you is that you have a lot more in the tank, and and if you get aggressive on the front end of your races, you have a lot. You have some fast swims in you. I'm kind of curious as to how aggressive you could get on a 200 meter backstroke with a full taper. What that would look like. Is that? Do you have a goal time? Do you want to share your goal time in the 200 meter backstroke? You can share it here.
Look, my goal time for this season was just getting down to 2:03, and I did that back in March. So it's kind of been like, oh crap, like what do I do now? I haven't actually sat down with, it's not just my own goals, it's the goals that I have with my team, that being, my gym coach, my, sports analysis guys, like all of those people come together and we kind of talk about what we can do. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, I don't think, if I sat in my apartment after a session, I'm like, I've got nothing left to give. That I think that's the point of my career where I'm like, I think it might be time to throw in the towel and be done with the sport. But like you said, you've got to want more. Whether or not I can get more, that's another question, but I do want more.
We know from World Championships, you've got a 50 back, and we know how fast you come home. So at a certain point, we want to see full throttled fifth gear, laying it all out there. Do you promise?
Maybe.
A lot of people don't think about this, but I've said it a few times before. I was a 200 butterflyer, and I swam backstroke when I was a kid and swam it in college. I thought 200 backstroke was way, way more painful, much more painful, because 200 fly was rhythm and rolling, and I felt like there were opportunities to rest if you did it correctly. But in backstroke, there is no place to hide. It's just driving with your legs nonstop. Is that something you think about? You're like, I'm great at 200 backstroke, but it really hurts.
Oh, 200 backstroke is such a mental game as well. Like, I don't think I ever stand behind the blocks before the race and I'm like, oh, this is so fun. Like, I know that race hurts, and I know when you come off, even that first 100, you come off the wall for that third 50 and your legs are already started stinging. They feel like lead just sinking to the bottom of the pool. You're like, man, this is going to be an interesting back 100. But no, I think it's great. And the biggest thing for me as well as my underwaters, I'm not great hypoxically. So that's something I've really got to work on as well.
Well, coming into World Championships, there was we're talking to you, some swims based in the United States, but half of our audience is international. So we're talking to you from the United States. We're following Team USA closely, and we love Regan Smith. And Regan has struggled since 2019. She had an extraordinary World Championships. Then the pandemic was tough, and it felt like she was coming back into her own this year. So we were all making predictions about what was going to happen at World Championships. And we're very excited about it until New South Wales. And that caused some insecurity among Team USA fans. But it's coming into World Championships after such a spot on spring, how are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. Obviously, I'm sick now off the back of it all, but just with Regan, like, I think she's a phenomenal athlete. And I've said it before as well. I don't think the backstroke would be as red hot if it wasn't for her. She was the first woman to go into 58. She was the first woman to go into 204. Like, that in itself is unbelievable. And it took me how many years after to be like hunting her down for that. And I have no doubt in my mind that she's going to come back, and, she might even be that first woman to go into the 57 or, 203 mark. Like, I can see the fire in her eyes, and her co-coach Bob as well. And, that drives me in my training environment. So I don't think the rivalry between the two of us has, been put to bed at all. I think, in saying that the US did get dealt a bad hand leading into, the World Championships. They were over in Singapore, and then, came in. I was talking to a few of them, and they were pretty tired. So I don't think that they necessarily had the best preparation that they could have.
I feel like when we're this close and we're living in it, and you're living in it, you're in the water, you're fighting, you're competing. But I feel like even as fans, as we're in it, in the news cycle, in this moment in history now, I don't think we really understand how great the female talent is around the world. When Regan broke the world record in 2019, I thought in that moment, and shared it with people and shared it publicly, I felt like that might be the swim of a generation. Like, that world record just might stand as long as Mary T. Maher's 200 butterfly, which she did back in 1981. And boy, was I wrong. And but it's a testament to what's happening now. Do you ever sit back and think, wow, there's a lot of female talent. Women are killing it right now in swimming.
Yeah. And look, it's funny you say that, because even, back then in 2019, I was with my former coach, Chris Mooney, and we did not expect Regan to swim as well as she did. And then we had with my coach, Michael Bell now, he's like, oh yeah, when she did that back in 2019, I thought nobody had a chance of touching her. But yeah, I think being the person I am, I love that competitiveness. And then even if you look at, Molly and Arnie, like they're so competitive and, but from the same nation. And I was, this probably will be wrong, but you'll get the gist of what I'm saying. So our final for our women's trainer freestyle would have been good enough for all of those swimmers to make, the semis. It's crazy. It's absolutely wild. So yeah, the depth in Australia, especially in women's freestyle, is kind of scary.
Very scary. But impressive too. I always remind people in the United States, and there's a close relationship, and I love and respect for swimming in Australia. I always remind people, I'm like, Australia is 26.4 million people. The United States is 339.9 million people. The state of Texas, where sometimes based in Austin, Texas, the state of Texas has 30 million residents. Is it something that you think about and anyone talks about on swimming Australia? Do you think, hey, we're not as big as the United States, we still bring it to them?
Look, it's definitely been said, but it's not something that comes up that often. Like, it's like, we're a small nation, but we're very prideful. And we, for Australia, we do bring home a lot of our Olympic medals. And I think that kind of pressure has always kept swimming our number one sport. So yeah. Kind
of. What I'm hearing from you is kind of.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's going back to the 1980s. It was, let's just say, we knew to always respect Team Australia because you never knew what was going to happen. In terms of, but I did want to bring it back to this one thought. I did say, we've lived through an era of enormous global stars on the men's side. We went, particularly obviously the Phelps era, with so many and a lot of big names. And I feel like this is, and the Paris Olympics could be the Olympics where women shine. And really all of the performance comes from the women's side of a lot of the best races, a lot of the close races. But in terms of just talent, I feel like this might be the women's Olympics. I do.
It would be awesome to be a part of that as well. But even then, it's like, you still got Leon, who broke Michael Phelps' world record. Like, people like that, you still got the, the star athletes in the males group as well. But I think the females, Summer McIntosh, Arielle Tipner, Molly O'Callaghan, all those like big names, I think it's going to be, and even Emma, like, it's just, unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Let's get into the weeds of world championships. The fans were robbed in the 200 IM. We were so excited. You've been, what did you go, 207.14 in the 200 IM? Is that correct? I made it my 207.19. 207.19 at the Sydney Open. That was in May. That's a personal best. So we were like, whoa, Kaylee's turned on in the 200 IM. This is going to be an amazing final. And the back to breast turn, you went past vertical, but we also reported some other athletes were going past vertical. They didn't get DQs, and particularly some Team USA athletes. Was it something that surprised you, and how did you handle it?
Look. The medley has been something that I really enjoy training for. And, when I went to 207, I was like, I could really give those US girls a red hot, go for this race, and started training it a little bit more and more. And I'm still needing to get a bit more practice with how to race it properly under my belt. So hopefully, this start of the season, I'll be able to do that and, get that confidence in it. And then, all of a sudden I'm getting ready for this, going through the semifinals. I had a really good, comfortable heat swim semifinal, so that as we were getting out, and like usually they DQ you when you're still in the pool. And it wasn't till I had, done my media for back home, and then he had come back around. He's like, oh, did you see the board? You got DQ'd. And I was like, huh? Like, it's not something I've only ever been DQ'd for, moving on the blocks before a backstroke start. So I was just like, what did I get DQ'd for? I was going through my head. I was like, I didn't go past the 15. My hands touched on every wall together. Like, I don't understand what I did wrong. And, I think it was a few hours later, the head coach, Rod Taylor, came over. He's like, oh, yeah, you were over 90 degrees. And I was like, I could have sworn like it was safe. And like it was, so we went in, obviously tested against it, and they came back and just said no, but they didn't use any other footage. So they used the footage on the bottom of the pool that was over in lane 8. So it's kind of hard to justify where 90 degrees is when, you know, I was in lane 5 or something like that, and they're using a camera on the opposite side of the pool. And then, you know, the next day I see this article that you guys have released of cameras from above. And I broke down in tears. I was like, this is so unfair. Like, because even the person who had DQ'd me, they were like, oh, it was 50-50. So they just went with, you know, the same option, let's DQ her. But, you know, so when you guys released that footage, I was just distraught. Like, I was like, this is so unfair. Like, and this is before my 100 backstroke heats, mind you, like just bawling my eyes out. Because originally I thought, you know, I'll cop it on the chin, go with the rules, go with the ruling. And then I was like, no, like, I'm going to show these guys that I'm still a good swimmer. I'm not going to let them take my world championships away from me. And I'm just so thankful as well. We had another Australian in that race. Jenna Forrester, up and coming. Not even up and coming. She was on the podium for the 400. So I just think, like, for me, I was proud to have another Australian in there to give those girls a red hot crack as well.
2:7:19 in May, and you know, you're just off Stephanie Rice's Australian record, and so you have to. What would you have swum if you know, we're going to look into the alternate universe where you swam that final? What would it have been?
Oh, look, I would have hoped to have had been around the 2.7. I don't think I'm quite, you know, a 2.6 swimmer yet. But who knows? We guess we'll have to wait and see for what I can do next season.
I would say definitely made a bet on the podium somewhere with a certain color of medal, and the fans felt like they were robbed. And I think that's part of the reason why a lot of the reporters jumped on the story and started digging into it. And I'm sorry that made you cry when you read it. That's okay. But you recovered. Hey, so here, talk to us. You know, there's a lot of young people who listen to this. You are a world-class athlete, a 3-time Olympic champion. How do you manage your emotions when you have a moment like that and then turn it around so quickly? What was going through your mind? What is the process?
Sometimes I think it is better to just cry and let it all out in one go, so then you're not carrying this emotional baggage trying to hold back the tears for the rest of the week. And, you know, like I had said, that first night after being DQ'd, I was okay. I was like, I don't feel like I should cry. And I actually felt bad. I was like, I should be upset about this, but I was already in that mentality of I've still got more races. And I think it's really important as well. Like, my coach talked about it and then that was it. Like, one, done. So I think that it's so much better when people just move on as quickly as you can, because it allows you to be able to gear up for the next race. And to me, like in the past, you know, with my dad passing, I've always been able to challenge it into, you know, a negative into a positive, being like, you know, now I have this extra little motivation to get me going for my next races. And to me, I just flipped it, you know, this is a little bit unfair. Like, I didn't do anything wrong, but there should have been others that got DQ'd. And this is what I've got going for me now. If I could prove to them that I'm still a great athlete despite what they do, I've made myself proud. And I've, you know, for the Olympics even next year, like, if something like this happens again, I could be like, I've done this before, I can do this again. Like, it doesn't matter how much upset there is. I would like to think that I've got enough support, I'm strong enough to get up and go again.
I talked to a coach in the United States, an elite coach, one of the best coaches in the world, and he's kind of a tough person. And one of the athletes jumped and they jumped on a relay. And it was bad. A lot of points on a relay. This was a college swimming situation, which is really a big deal in the United States. And I said, how did you handle that? And I thought that he was going to give me some version of it, you know, this was the stern speech. And instead he came back and said, well, you know, you have to acknowledge it. You've got to feel it. And you've got to process those emotions. And you've got to give it enough time, but you got to move on as quickly as possible. So,
yeah. And I think now is the time to kind of reflect on it and be like, feel that disappointment. Like, I felt it then, but it's more like the deeper thought about it.
I asked the writers of some, I said, hey, you know, give me some questions. And one of the questions was the follow-up. Did that 200 IM, do you feel like it impacted your backstroke?
I wouldn't say it impacted my backstroke. It definitely took, you know, emotional energy away from me. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And I dealt with it the best way that I could.
It's a lot, and a long marathon of a weekend, which is really an emotional roller coaster. I was going to ask you questions about those photographs, but you said you read it and you saw it on SwimSwam.
Yeah.
There is something that we ran. We ran a picture of you and Regan in the ready room, and you're chatting it up and you're smiling, and we built up this huge rivalry, like you're going to battle this, and you really screwed up our tension and our drama. Why did you do that? Why are you guys being so nice to each other?
I've been in a marshalling room before where it's just so tense, and it just, like, for me personally, it feels hostile. I'm like, we're all athletes. We're all trying to do the same thing. Why do we have to hate one another? And, like, I don't know, it just makes the pressure less if you're able to have, good light tension, even if it's like, fake, some people might call it. But, I want to get to know people internationally. Australia is so far from everything. So I don't get the chance to, go over and do all the tier series and that kind of stuff. So for me, this is a big chance to get to know people, and Kylie Moss there as well. I've become good friends with her. So yeah, I just think it's nice to be able to talk to people in the marshalling room and take off those nerves and try to switch off before a race.
These are memories you're going to have for the rest of your life. How would you describe your relationship with Regan? This is the spotlight's going to be on you. You're two global stars in the sport of swimming. Do you feel an intimacy with her in that way?
Like I said, I think we're both athletes trying to be the best in the world, and we can bond with that. And I said to her after one of the podiums, I was like, I'd love for you to come over to Australia and, train in my program for a little bit. She's like, oh, I'd actually love to do that, after Olympics and that kind of thing. So, it is a relationship that's got room to grow. And like I said, we don't get to speak to each other all the time. So it's not like we're best friends, but, I think if anything were to happen, I have a lot of people in the backstroke world that would support me.
Last year, our World Championships, a little bit of an off year. I don't know how you would describe it, but what happened last year compared to this year? What was the difference?
For me, it was a huge change in programs. I've gone from somebody who does this 3-week cycle back into a normal week-to-week cycle. And that, for me, like, my body was just under so much more load, and I wasn't as consistent in training. My confidence was low. I was comparing my times with my old coach to my coach now, and I was just stuck in this world of I just want to swim well. And I was so focused on trying to swim well that I wasn't doing the actual process to get to that point. And, I had a few injuries there too. For, I think it was around 8 months, I was basically kicking. So it was 80% kick, 20% swim. So you can't really go into a world championships with that much confidence. And I think for me, the best thing I could have done was taking that pressure off and not do that 100 backstroke, because I didn't want to, dig the hole deeper. So it was great for me to have that 200 medley there, gain that international experience. First time I'd ever swum it. And then that 200 backstroke was just, I was so nervous for that race because I just come off the back end of Olympics. And I won that event. I had that pressure on me. And I just remember now, I wasn't enjoying swimming, and I've made a lot of changes from last year to this year. That kind of all started clicking for me in December. So yeah, I think it's all finally come together.
I hear a lot of athletes saying that a lot of elites coming out of the pandemic into the Olympic Games in this weird year and the weird Olympics, where you swam incredibly well, but it took so much emotion. And we saw it with Caleb Dressel. Caleb popped. He's like, yeah. I'm out. I've had enough. My nervous system is shot. You had to manage that as well, like everybody else. Did you feel the weight of that coming out of the pandemic and then this weird Olympic year?
I think it was just a mix of everything, because I lost my dad during the pandemic, and I think I pushed that to a certain place where I was like, I can pick that up later. And then, after the Olympics, I was like, this is my time to actually feel that and, think about it. And then, it was what had happened at Olympics, how well we all swam. And it was the pressure of trying to find a program. I was supposed to have 8 weeks off and enjoy my time off. But the whole 8 weeks, I was just stressed about trying to find a new club to train at, find a new coach, find new physios, massages. Like, I didn't have the actual time to sit down. At the time I got to World Championships last year, I was just like, I just don't want to be here. And, and then we had Cobb Games. Like, last year was huge. We got to Cobb Games, and I actually remember crying to our head coach on pool deck. I was like, just send me home. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, and I'm not that person at all. So for me to sit here today and reflect on that and see how far I've grown as, a person and an athlete, I'm proud of myself, and I'm proud for how, the people around me supported me for that as well.
Still managing to perform. It wasn't as great a year as the Olympics were this year, but it's still impressive.
Thank you.
That is it's hard to hear, because I feel a lot of people in swim are just so tired. They're kind of going, man, and I see it behind the scenes. I see, we're on deck, we're close to athletes, and we see it in their face. What is I'm starting to love it again. What is that love? Where did that come from? How did you find that again? What was the turning point?
I had this saying where it's, a happy swimmer is a fast swimmer. And I think I just needed to find what made me happy. I moved out, I'm in my own apartment, I've got my own space. Like, I'm living life how I want to live it. And, it was the first time I moved out of home as well last year. So it's all just like piled up on one another. And I finally feel at ease. My home is my sanctuary. I feel at peace. I can go down to the beach. I can take my dogs for a walk, like all this kind of stuff. So it's just nice to live how I used to when I was back home with my parents.
And a lot of athletes don't manage that moment where they go out on their own as well. It can go either way.
Yeah, and I think having, short course worlds in Australia really helped. If it was anywhere else in the world, I wouldn't have done it, but it was definitely the meet where I could see, my training was starting to chip away at my old PBs. And, I didn't do anything spectacular, but it was, just a challenge of enjoying myself. And our Australian team, we were just loving it down there. Like, I don't know if it's because it was the last meet of the year, there was no pressure, but we just we're vibing.
So independence on your own, create your own safe space, and finish out the year world champs. Kind of cool. So off topic, we're all scratching our heads going, wow, we have world championships in the Olympic year, and that feels weird. It's in the middle in the United States, college swimming so big, it's in the middle of the college season. So it's like, what is, who's going to go? Are you guys going? Are you going?
Look, Australia is taking over like a B team, I guess. They've said, if you're from this year's World Championships, you want to go to next year, put your hand up, because we're not having a trials for it. So it's just a matter of who wants to go. And, the reason being, sometimes there was rumors that was like, they're going to take over a men's 4x1 relay, just medley relay to try expose them for the Olympic Games and that kind of stuff. I don't know if they're still going to do that, but for me, I won't be doing it.
It's in Doha, right?
Yes.
So you should, just for people that are not watching this on video and listening on the podcast, that was a definitive head shaking of no. There's a lot of athletes doing the same thing at the elite level. You know what? I think that's fine. I think that's actually cool, because a lot of athletes will get on the podium, they'll final and they'll get on the podium, and it'll be a great experience. And it'll be a good confidence builder for, so you're graciously the star. Kaylee McKeown is going to step aside and let someone else experience it for a while. So very kind of you, very gracious.
I wouldn't say it's like that. Like, I definitely want to be there. It's just not what's in my plan.
No, it definitely doesn't feel like an Olympic year training cycle moment in time. It just kills you. That would eat up. It's just, you're taking, that would ended up being 2 weeks of your life.
Yeah. And it's also, you could be using that time to train. So
it's been over 2 years. Can you talk about, the change from, Coach Chris Mooney to Michael Bowl, and, what that's looked like for you as an elite athlete?
Yeah. I think my journey with Chris was definitely, from the age of, I think I moved to him when I was 15 to 21. Well, around about 20, sorry. So I was with him for a good chunk, and he definitely created this huge base to me as an athlete, like, my endurance, my aerobic, and, even my speed. So I think a lot of what I've learned from him, and especially on an international stage, I've been able to carry into Bowley's program and really mold that. And, Bowley's been around for years, decades. He was a surrender himself, so he's seen a lot. And I think for me, the biggest thing was self-confidence. He couldn't believe what I had done with how little confidence I really had. So I think he's really taken me as the athlete he's seen, and he's built me from here to here. And, it's taken its time, but I've got all the confidence in him and his programming in the world now. And I know he's going to sit down and be like, how do I get my swimmer from here to here? And I think that's the best thing in a coach, is knowing that they have your best interests at heart.
Well, I'm glad that your confidence is up. You're a swimming hero, which really begs the question, the 2024 Paris Olympic Games, are you going to take on the 200 IM, 200 back double?
It's scary to say yes, because you never know, but I would like to say yes. It's going to be a huge program, and it's just a matter of getting through that and getting my head around it before actually putting it on display.
Sounds painful.
It sounds like a lot of energy.
Sounds like a lot of energy, but it's I appreciate you being honest and saying, hey, it's on the table. We're considering. That's I hope so, because we feel like we got robbed again at the World Championships. In terms of everything that happened with did you watch our news in terms of when Cate did the morning show, and then everybody went viral and went nuts? Did you see did you see our response to it? Did you see our video? We really got on we said, we got to talk about this. I don't think people understand what's really happening here. I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that?
I didn't see her response, but you could share it with me.
No. Our response. No, we responded by, look, this isn't.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. We jumped on because it was something that became a big deal globally, and it was we had a chat about it, and we were like, look, we don't know what's going on culturally in Australia, but we know for a fact that this television show is meant to be lighthearted and fun, and Cate was really playing it up, and there's an element of truth in it, and that's fine. But we, at the end of our discussion was, we think this is a gift, and it really sets everything up for 2024 in Paris against two great swimming nations. But you made a statement, and your statement I feel like was extraordinarily diplomatic. I was like, did a PR company write that statement? It was perfectly balanced. It showed Cate respect, but it sort of said, hey, you don't cheer everybody's. That's not everyone's opinion on Team Australia.
Yeah. Look, I think I didn't see the interview that Cate had given it. I know it was lighthearted, and it was a bit of fun and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, for me, I've always been taught to, respect one another, respect, different cultures and nations. And I know how prideful the US is. And I know that if somebody had said that about Australia and, it was coming from one of my competitors, I would have been just destroyed, how hurtful that is to say, especially, about the style banner and that kind of thing. I was just that's not okay in my eyes. And, there was a few other athletes that were on team that we had spoken about it, and I knew I had, them behind my back. They didn't agree with what was said either. And, we actually had the US come up to us after they got presented their award for being top nation, and they basically just said, you guys deserve that. So I think Cate wasn't there to see that and see how nice that was for them to do. And that's what kind of not pissed me off, but just annoyed me. I was like, hey, that rivalry is there, yes, but there's still a certain level of respect that we have to give.
That is something that I haven't seen or heard. That is definitely nuance, which is that, we were all watching, and we were watching the medal count from the U.S. telecast.
Yeah.
For U.S. fans. And when they flipped the medal table, we called them out immediately. But it's interesting that the Team USA athletes did walk up to you and said, you know what, you guys, you were the performers of this meet. That must have felt great.
Yeah, I think it's always nice to have that acknowledgement. And, our head coach, Rowan, as well, had said that. He's like, I'm thankful that they came up and said that. It means something to us. And they didn't you guys from the US didn't have to do that, and it just showed how kind-hearted you guys are.
Who said it? Who on Team USA said it?
Oh, I wasn't there when it was said. I just heard that it had been said, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That's good. Well, it's a good message. I like that message. All right. Well, we'll definitely clip this out and share this on social. So final medley relay. There was let me set this up for you. Team USA internally, the entire discussion is like, wow, we're really getting our butts handed to us here. Australia, it's just they're really bringing it. They're a dominant team, and the medley relay at the end was a moment of like a little bit of hope for Paris next year. It's Regan swam fast. Regan went to 57.6.
Yeah.
Break down, what was that swim like? What was the medley like?
For me, so I swam down off that 2-day backstroke. I didn't bother coming in that morning. I just needed a rest. It was the first morning off that I had the entire meet. So I was just excited to get my sleep in. And, my coach was like, I want you to try and do the complete clean sweep meeting, keep her out of the medley relay as well. Unfortunately, I didn't get my hand on the wall. I was out too slow and didn't have enough space, I guess, in a 50-meter pool to catch her in that last 50. So she got her hand on the wall first, and she did that in style. And from there, the US just let out. We definitely, our athletes were all tired, and I think next year we've got different plans and just different strategies to try and bridge that gap between us and the US.
When no one's listening to this toward the end of the podcast, you can tell me, how is Australia going to beat Team USA in the medley?
We did it at Olympics by like a little bit, so hopefully we can find that same little bit of magic and bring it out again at an Olympic stage.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Is there anything that I didn't cover? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I don't know. I'm happy. I'm all happy.
Well, let's close it out with this. Tell us, what are you going to do? What are you doing to decompress and celebrate as we take a little bit of break before we ramp up for Olympic training?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a Sunny Coast girl, so I'm going to go back to Sunshine Coast and see all my friends up there and, go camping, spend that kind of time up there and enjoy that, just away from this environment.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me on as well.